I have a clip to play for you of Pete Buttigieg absolutely dismantling a conservative host over the issue of the southern border and of Biden's record more broadly. This is a masterclass, what I'm about to show you, in how these talking points should be confronted. And as I'm sure you are all aware, Pete Buttigieg is really good in these sorts of settings, going on to conservative shows and just knocking down the house of cards of these right-wing talking points. Before playing the clip, if you would please click the like button and alert bell, that would be greatly appreciated. Here's this from CNBC.
Well, hold on, let's be clear here,
Let me finish first. But every time we hear those talking points that suddenly it was Republicans who ruined the border, that's why people get so frustrated. We know what President Biden said about inviting people in. We know that he got rid of all the things that were keeping the border closed that President Trump had put in. We know that he got rid of all those. So when you say it's not his fault,
that's literally not true. It's literally not true that he got rid of the It's true he got rid of family separation.
Did you see 7.2 million people come in during the Trump administration? It was a trickle.
He got rid of the policy to tear children out of the arms of their parents. That's true. But it is not true. Some of the other things that have been suggested. Let's be clear. Bipartisan efforts at border reform have taken place in 2015, 2006. I mean, literally since the Reagan administration, right? There have been bipartisan efforts to get something done here. But I really believe we've gotten to the point where many congressional Republicans find it so useful as a cudgel that they would rather keep the problem going for political uses than solve the problem and risk the chance that the president could share in the credit for that. In the same way that we see some of them, even though we had great bipartisan cooperation on the infrastructure bill that I work on, a lot of them who were against that, only to turn around and try to get credit for it when we actually have a ribbon cutting or a groundbreaking.
The reason that some of these numbers stay where they are is because it just seems like instead of actually owning some of the issues that we have, instead of acknowledging that the president maybe has lost a step, the administration keeps saying, "Don't believe your lying eyes," and that's why you're
respectfully,
that's why you're at 18%.
Respectfully, I think congressional Republicans are saying, "Don't believe your lying eyes," which is why they're polling at about 15% right now.
I know that
right
Congress
now,
is never. Congress isn't running.
We have economic numbers
for president.
Is it my eyes that under Joe Biden we've had the most job creation in American history? Is it my lying eyes telling us that unemployment and inflation are both below 4% and have been that way for the longest time in who knows when? Is it reality or is it spin?
So much good stuff there. So yeah, on the border, I'll try not to go over for too long all the things I've been saying on repeat for the last few weeks and months, but I guess quickly, migrants were more likely statistically to be released under the Trump administration than the Biden administration. Many of the overinflated numbers during the Title 42 era were the same people being denied over and over. There has definitely, though, been a surge in migration post-pandemic, but Biden hasn't stopped enforcing laws at the border or opened it up or anything of the sort. As Pete Buttigieg pointed out, Biden has gotten rid of some of the particularly inhumane policies, but has very similar border policy otherwise to years previous. The big drop in border crossings in 2020 was obviously because of the pandemic, given that 1 year previous, 2019, under Trump, saw more border encounters than any year under Obama. Does that mean Republicans will say Obama was way better, we got to have him decide what we're going to do on the border? No. So clearly Trump's policies weren't effective, even by Republicans' favored metric. And as Pete Buttigieg pointed out, this has long been a logistical and humanitarian issue. And that's why Biden introduced an immigration reform proposal right when he got into office that Republicans refused to engage with. And then currently, he's supporting, as we've talked so much about, the strongest action on the border that we've seen in decades, supported by the Border Patrol Union, and MAGA Republicans are obstructing it to hurt Joe Biden politically. Republicans cannot honestly talk about the border when they're fighting against doing anything about it. We'll get back to a stunning example of that in just a moment. But first, to respond to the second part of that clip, it's absolutely correct for Pete Buttigieg to point out, we're not asking you to not believe your lying eyes. We're asking you to move around your eyes just a little bit once in a while. Yes, straight ahead, it seems all anyone can talk about is Biden's age. And that's a factor. But do you know what's also a factor? His record. the thing that actually impacts people's lives. Clearly, he's doing something correct on that front. The largest investment in infrastructure in America, or since the Eisenhower highway program, lowering of prescription drug costs, and economic recovery thanks to Bidenomics that has outpaced and stunned the rest of the world post-pandemic. How about putting a little bit of attention again on the things that actually impact your life the most, and not just what is the most salacious on cable news? Again, I just recently did a deep dive into Biden's policy record and why he's one of the most successful presidents in modern American history. I'll link that video in the description if you have not watched it yet. Now, back to the border topic. Republicans say they want to prevent fentanyl from getting into the country, as I definitely do. Well, take a look at this from NBC News. Thanks to their obstruction, Customs and Border Protection has spent millions on the most up-to-date high-tech scanners to spot fentanyl crossing the southern U.S. border, but many scanners are sitting in warehouses unused because Congress hasn't appropriated funds to install them, acting CBP Commissioner Troy Miller told NBC News. Some of the equipment, again, that has been purchased hasn't yet been put into use because Congress hasn't allocated the funding need to install it. And then take a look at this. The money to install the screeners was in the supplemental funding request Republicans blocked. That was the big border bill we talk so much about. So Republicans are again blocking action on the border to hurt Biden politically, which is pretty disgusting. The next thing I want to look at, a reminder of, talked about this border visit. Biden went to the border, Trump went to the border. Trump just fearmongered and nebulously ranted about all these different things with no actual policy solutions being brought forward and no level-headed discussion about the subject at hand. Whereas Biden showed up to the border and actually talked about the policies he thought could be implemented to address issues there. And here was his message to Trump and Republicans.
Let me end with this. I understand my predecessor's an eagle pass today. So here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with this issue, instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan border security bill. We can do it together. You know and I know it's the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill this country has ever seen. So instead of playing politics with the issue, why don't we just get together and get it done? Let's remember who the heck we work for. We work for the American people, not the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. We work for the American people. The Speaker of the House needs to put this bill on the floor, because if he put it on the floor unrestricted, it would pass. The majority of Democrats and Republicans in both houses support this legislation until someone came along and said, don't do that, it'll benefit the incumbent. That's a hell of a way to do business in America for such a serious problem. We need to act. And folks here in Brownsville and all along the border know that. We need to have their backs, your backs. And I want the people to understand clearly what happened here. This bill was in the United States Senate, was on its way to being passed. Then it was derailed by rank and file politics, partisan politics. The U.S. Senate needs to reconsider this bill. And those senators who oppose it need to set politics aside and pass it on merits, not on whether it's going to benefit one party or benefit the other party. It's about whether it benefits the American people. It's what the American people deserve.
So we could prioritize solutions and problem solving and working together by partisanship, or just fear-mongering and trying to exacerbate a problem so that you can then blame it on the other side. Seems like an easy decision to me, but I guess not to many elected Republicans. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel if you want to go a step further and support the show, plus get a daily bonus show. You can do so at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership.